Meeting come to order. Clerk call the roll.
Mayor Manning.
Present.
Councilman Petroselli.
Present.
Councilman Rowdy.
Present.
Will the clerk please read minutes from our last meeting?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I second that.
Accepting as written. Call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor?
Councilman Rowdy.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor. Reports from officers and committees.
Our first presentation tonight is on the 2020 census. Don't have your name.
Doreen Dean.
Doreen Dean's gonna give us a little presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I'm here about a very important topic, the 2020 census. Just a little bit about myself. I'm from the local region. I worked at the Wordley Arsenal for many, many years, and I just lived across the river. So the 2020 census is coming up. April 1st is Census Day of 2020. So right now we're preparing for it and educating everyone about it. If I can do this. So the mission and purpose. The mission of the census is to, the census itself is the nation's leading provider of quality data. So we always talk about the decennial census, which is every 10 years. However, the Census Bureau operates, all year round, every year. They do about 137 different surveys. This doesn't like me at all. So we are the largest statistical agency in the United States. The decennial census, like I said, is every 10 years, and then there are other surveys that the American Community Survey, there's an economics census, and those all tell us about jobs and housing and all that. That's all the statistical information that is out there. The decennial census is mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, and it is conducted every 10 years since 1790. I'm going to breeze through these slides. I know that we're kind of on a time crunch. Why do we have the census? And I have some flyers I'm going to hand out later that you can look a little bit more into it. There's some great websites to go on. But the idea of the decennial census, as mandated by the Constitution, is to determine the number of seats that each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives. So, for instance, Troy in 2010, that congressional area lost 2 seats because of the 2010 numbers that were collected in 2010. It also determines how there's going to be about $675 billion. Actually, I heard it was up around $690 billion in federal funding that's going to be spent, and that gets distributed throughout your community. So what Waterville gets from the federal funding is based on your population. Helps businesses, not-for-profits, and all them for planning decisions. So if you know that you're going to be getting some federal funding, or there's federal funding out there to apply for, you're more apt to have more success in planning your businesses. One of the things that is big, especially this year, we've been talking a lot about data protection. So we wanted to let you know that all data is protected by Title 13 federal law. And me as a federal census worker, and also every other census worker, is held to that with a penalty of federal prison up to 5 years and a fine of $250,000. So where are we right now? So I say the 2020 census. Well, this whole process starts way before 2020. This process, is all the time, actually, all the address canvassing and hiring. But the actual 2020 census is the first thing that happened was down in your left corner. We established word count, and that's your address canvassing. And that is going on right now. If you see census workers in your area and they're walking around, that is what they are doing. They are address canvassing to make sure that we have all the addresses that we need. Here I am, motivating people to respond. That's my main focus with all the communities. And then starting in probably about mid-March, and that's going to go for most of our colleges mid-March, April 1st is really what we call Census Day, and that is when we'll start doing the count of the population. And then by December 31st, we have to release that data to the President of the United States. So how do we respond to the census? This is going to be the first year that the census is going to be available online. You're going to be able to respond online. And like I said, I have some papers that I can give you on that. If you don't respond online, then you're going to get postcards in the mail, asking you to respond online. And then if all else fails, you might get a phone call, and then after that, you would actually get the knock on the door. What we do have is language assistance. So there's going to be 12 non-English languages that are represented in the questionnaires that are available. And if you need additional help, there are 59 non-English languages that are going to be offered. And these are some of the, Spanish is the primary one, and you got the purple ones that are ones that are going to be actually on the questionnaire, and then the other ones. So I just went through that. So we have, what they do is, they say that this is the biggest peacetime mobilization of federal ever, is when you do a single census. So what we've started to do is open our area offices, and now we just opened one in Albany. Ours has opened up. It's not public facing, it's more for us field workers to go to. One of the big things that now we're working on, besides educating the public, is also letting you know about recruiting. We are recruiting for lots and lots and lots of good paying jobs. And these can be part-time, full-time, mostly part-time. And they're going to start in November, which some of more address canvassing, but the main push is going to be, you're probably going to be hired around January, February to train you to be an enumerator, which is one of your people that go around and actually do the countings. And I have some job information also. So we talked about, what is some of the challenges of the census, and when I look at this, I see in this political climate that we're in, I see the distrust of government. I see there's one there where is it the mobilization of population. We have a lot of people that are traveling between cities, and we have kids at school and all those things. So those to me are the main things of the 2020 census where we might have a little bit of a challenge. So we're going to overcome the obstacles, and how are we going to do that? By educating you folks. And actually what we want to do is create partnerships within communities, within governments, so that we can educate our friends, our neighbors about the importance of the 2020 census. So who are our partners? Our elected officials, colleges, libraries, local businesses. If there's any local businesses here, I do have some information for you also on how you can help the census. Those are some of our initiatives. One of the big things that I always bring to our bigger groups like this is our complete count committees, and that's something that's going on right now. Very important for Waterloo, I believe, to get involved with is a complete count committee. Albany has just announced that they did their complete count committee. What that is saying that government is going to get involved and reaching out to their people to help get that count that we need. And we can support our partners in all these different ways. I can come, I can give material, we have all kinds of things. And there's our complete count committee, which I have more information on. Now here's where leading up to this, I've been doing my homework in the area. So when you look at this map, anybody in the tan, we're like, okay, not that they're not important, but in 2010, we believe they had an accurate count. Then as you start to get darker in color, you say, whoa, wait a minute, these are the areas we need to focus on. As you see, Waterloo, according to the ledger that I don't have up there, is 20 to 25%. They are anticipating, based on 2010, that you were undercounted. So we need to get that done, because like I said, your funds, $675 billion getting distributed, you guys were shortchanged in 2010 is my belief.
Can I ask a question on that slide?
Sure. Everybody go back. Let's see where I am. There it
It
is.
says the non-responsive is 20 to 20.
Yep.
Does that mean they assume that they didn't count 20 to 25?
Correct. They did not self-report. So
But did they make an estimate?
they make an estimate. And so what happens between 2010 and now, a lot of other surveys go out. So they can, it's based on statistics of what other people are responding in other surveys also, and then your population growth. So that's really kind of just a number that they're saying that this is what we anticipate. When they give it to us, they give us this map, and this map actually is very cool. It is available to everyone online. It's if you search Census Rome, you'll come up with it, and you can zoom right into your street, and you can see. Like if you go to the city of Troy, very interesting. 15th Street, totally dark blue. Why? Because there's students that probably thought that mom and dad should count them at home. But what it is you should be counted where you were sleeping, living on April 1st is how it should be counted. So So to answer your question, it's based on a lot of different things.
So Doreen,
Yeah,
No, I was just gonna say, so clearly we're not saying we're undercounted by 20%.
that is the projected of what you will be undercounted in 2020 if we do not act.
Do not, but, you know, you're saying that's coming from 2010 data, correct?
2010 data and all the data that has come since then. So your address canvassing, there's many ways that the census gets their data.
I mean, what I'm getting at is, you know,
Sure.
population is at, 10,000 plus,
Okay.
and that's not assuming we have actually 12,000 in the city. It's just that you're saying that people just don't respond, so you have some formula that make an estimate based on
Correct.
non-response?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Projected non-response. Does. Charlie?
well, that's what I was trying to figure out. Are we saying that we might really have 12,500 people?
What this data is saying is that when it's given to us, it's saying Watervliet is projected to be 20 to 25% undercounted. So get out there and help them get the right number so that they can get what they deserve. Okay.
And is that, if that's the case, then like we could probably figure out per capita how much money we're losing?
There is a dollar amount that they give you per person, that, typically the dollar amount, so you can find that online. I don't know it.
Federal fund, we're more concerned with like sales taxes,
Okay.
based on ratio.
Yeah, we can talk more. If I don't know the answers to your questions, I can definitely point you in the right direction. Where am I going here? Okay, so not only do we have, the decennial census, gives you, your financing, your House of Representatives, but also we have a great data dissemination program, great for schools, businesses. I had one business that used the analogy of, I want to open a daycare. Well, through all the census data that comes in, you can tell in your population, do you have children that are, under 4 years old? So is it worth it for you to open up a daycare? So those programs are all available online. There are many different data programs, which I'm sure some of you folks already use. Okay, that's it. So there's some great, we're all over social media, 2020census.gov, and I'm just going to do this really quickly. It's a little 2-minute.
Qualified households across the country will participate in the 2020 census. But what is the census? Simply put, the census is a head count of every person living in the United States. To ensure the government represents the people, the U.S. Constitution requires a population count every 10 years. Ever since 1790, the census has determined the number of seats each state receives in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is, and always has been, a cornerstone of our democracy. We still use it to determine representation, but leaders also use the data to make decisions. Your response helps guide planning for the future of our communities. The 2020 census will help inform decisions on how billions of dollars are allocated annually for critical public services like roads, schools, hospitals and healthcare clinics, fire and emergency response services, and hundreds of other programs. In 2020, for the first time, you'll be able to complete the census online, by phone, or by mail. It asks a few simple questions, like how many people live in your home on April 1st, including their age and sex, and if there are any children living there. You should know that by law, all census responses are completely confidential, and your personal information cannot be shared with any law enforcement agencies. Every person counts, no matter who you are or where you live. So whether your family has participated for decades or the 2020 census will be your first, we all have a role in shaping the future of our country.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, like I said, I'll leave some material behind for you, and I have business cards I'll also leave behind. If you have any questions at all, just let me know.
And one more, when actually is the data available? Because I know it's
Say it again, I'm sorry.
the data, it's not available on the actual count. You know,
Yeah, so that'll be available March of 2021.
that's when it'll be released
Yes,
officially.
yes, March of 2021. It's totally gathered by December 31st of 2020. That's when we're done. But they say that it'll be released to the public in March of 2020.
Tori, I have a quick question. You
Sure.
mentioned that there was going to be some canvassing going on, and it's
Yes.
to get the addresses and things like that. Will the staff have specific IDs so that when the public sees somebody walking around and staring at their home, they know that they're with the census?
Yes, they will have exactly the same ID as I have, but that is a very good question because we have had, throughout not just New York but the nation, some instances where obviously people don't like people creeping around their homes.
Sure.
So yes, you are more than welcome to challenge anyone that you see, and they should produce their badge for you.
Thank you.
That's definitely.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any way we can get an idea of what neighborhoods they're going to be in at what particular time, not time of day or week or month?
Yes.
So that
So
we can let those people know that, hey, next week the census are coming, we really need you to get out there and give your information.
yeah. So what happens first is there'll be a big push. So starting in March, you'll get postcards saying respond, respond, respond online, starting in this date, which is April 1st. After April 1st, they're gonna get more like, come on, come on. Problem is though, I can't really answer that because it's only gonna be those people that don't respond, right? So that's where they're gonna go. So if we get a lot of responses in one neighborhood, or everybody responds, then they're not going to be there. They're only going to be there. And that's going to start in end of May, beginning of June will be the door knockers. Yeah, so to
You were
answer your
talking
question,
about
no, I can't give you, I'm sure we will never get an exact. I can try, but I don't think we will.
And so you go to a house and they don't answer, do you go back again, or?
They will make up to 3 trips back, and then it comes down to, they have all kinds of formulas they use, they count, they'll count meters on houses, right? So they mark if it's a 2-family, 1-family. They will go to public records for that home. They usually have a very good relationship, with the city and with the schools, and with the building department, and know kind of what's going on in the city. But yes, they will go back up to 3 times.
Do we have the ability to review the information before it becomes official so we can dispute it, saying you guys are way undercounted here, or you guys need to relook at this? Is that
No, because it's all by public response. So no one can,
so you don't get
no one can see that
no
at all.
preliminary information on you failed to get 25% of your households?
No, that's why it's so important to act now and make sure that people get out there and respond. There's no way of doing it after the fact. And that's where we kind of fell down, and I'm speaking for Troy actually, because that's a really dark blue, and so they suffered for the last 10 years because of it.
So if we go onto that map, we can see the areas in Waterbury where it was undercounted.
Yes, where it was undercounted and where they believe that the undercounting will take place. Now, I have zoomed into actual streets, and it looks to me like the whole city of Waterbury is the same color. It's that same dark. Now, if you go to Troy, your kind of your Brunswick area, becomes a little bit lighter, but you get downtown, it becomes really dark. But Waterbury, it's all like that second to darkest blue, that 20 to 25%.
So you get a map to see what they're considering the city lines?
Absolutely. So on that Rome, that census, if you just put in census Rome, you'll come up to it, and you can actually go. It's based on congressional districts, so it'll pull them out for you, and you can get actual data on that area too. It'll tell you, what types of people are living in the area, ages, nationalities.
But there's no recourse if we feel we've been undercounted?
Not to my knowledge, no. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Doreen. Our next presentation is going to be by General Manager Smith. While he gets ready, just was asked to make an announcement. The Senior Center Craft Fair is next Saturday, the 5th, October 5th, right here. If anybody wants to come and participate, get some crafts, they would really appreciate it. 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
you.
All right, folks, we're going to change gears a little bit here. I have a few presentations and announcements to make today during this period. The first one we did talk about at our last council meeting. The council made adopted some resolutions that have to do with this, but I'm going to be focusing on the water filtration plant's capital improvement plan. Straight into it. So the filter plant itself was originally built in 1917. It was completed and operational in January of 1918. So it's just over 100 years old. For those that don't know, it's located on 155 Albany Shaker Road in Latham. It's been added on to several times over the years.
Waterville Shaker Road.
I'm sorry, Waterville Shaker Road. Sorry. So Brian's Albany jacket and got me thinking Albany. Thanks, Don. Been added on to several times to meet the capacity needs of the city. So I'll show you an old picture coming up here where you can see what the size of it was then and how many filters it had, and it's been added on to since. It's continuously upgraded for technology. It has a SCADA system, so it basically runs on its own now, operates automatically, but does have to be manned. And the plant's capacity currently exceeds its usage. It could provide up to 6 million gallons a day, but currently the city of Waterville, we use roughly 3 million gallons a day, up to about 3.5 in the summer months. So this is an old picture, somewhat original picture from way back when. Looks a little bit different now, but not too much. That's the same building that stands there now. And again, 100 years later, it's still standing, and structurally, the building major itself is in relatively good condition. So, and we'll get into some of that as we move on. To give you an idea of where it is, if you can see a little bit there, the purple circle down in the bottom right corner, that's where it is. The road in front of it is Waterville Shaker Road. See, just so that we have that clear now. And then up on the top, and again, this is obviously an old picture of Latham. Up on the top is our service reservoir. So that's back behind Carondelet. And so it gives you an idea of where, when our water comes in from Guilderland, it goes to that service reservoir and then feeds down into the filter plant. So back in 2016, we applied for a grant through the consolidated funding application through CDBG and for a water system study. So it was a study, as we call, from raindrop to tap. Take a look at our entire water system. We did receive that grant in 2017 to do the full water system study, and within that study, the main focus was on the filter plant and its needs. Again, with it being 100 years old, we wanted to get a full assessment of that. So that was completed specifically in 2018 and submitted to the Department of Health and EFC for their review, and was accepted by them. It identified $7 million worth of work, split into 3 priorities, so priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. From that, we utilized that to apply for a public infrastructure grant through CDBG as well in 2018, but we did not receive that. Public infrastructure grant for a filter plant, kind of a long shot. That's not really what they're looking for. They're looking for more, distribution type work within the city. So we did not receive that. So it kind of brought up, what did we need to do to find more grant funding? Obviously, $7 million project is not something that we want taxpayers to take on. So what can we do to get some more grant funding? So we put together a water treatment plant capital improvement plan and had an engineer sharpen up the report. So we basically took it from the task priority list of 1, 2, and 3 and put it into a phased project approach. So again, finding grant funding was one of the reasons why, but the further deterioration that was going on at the filter plant resulted in some immediate needs. So we knew that we needed this money right away. We have some areas in there where we're finding that there's some cracks and some infiltration of water, and so we need to fix that now, otherwise we'll be looking at an emergency situation to fix it. The final engineering report was provided to us earlier this month, and so that's why we're here today to go over this. Again, it's about $7 million roughly for the entire project, spread out over the 5 years. And as we go through it, we're going to get into each of the years, what's planned for it, and that includes escalation and inflation costs. The council did approve at the last meeting a $5 million bond resolution Part of that was so that we could get moving on some of this work now, even if we do not receive a grant, but it was also necessary for us to apply for the grant, which is the last bullet there. The Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant was applied for after the last meeting from being authorized, and that could cover up to 60% of the total cost of the filter plant project. So again, this is an old schematic of what it looks like. Those lined areas on the side were aerators, they're like stairs for the water to go down. And as we get to the long end at the top there, those were the original filters. Doesn't specifically look like that anymore, but relatively, that's what it looked like at first, and it's been added on to since. And just an idea of what it looks like, the bottom parts of that are pretty much underground, but it's symmetrical and split in that particular way, again, when it was originally built. And this is what it looks like now. So this is an aerial view of what the plant looks like. And we're going to be getting into each of these different areas here. Some fun words to say and some explanations off of that. But this is what the filter plant looks like in total. And with that, this is what the property looks like. So this is the entire property up at the filter plant. Again, I can get, there we go. So this area back here, underneath the ground here, these are clear wells. So after the water is treated, that's where it goes before it's distributed down to the city. So that's actually an important area. It's not just vacant land underneath there, is where the clear wells are. And these areas over here are lagoons. And when we get into a little bit more detail, either myself or David Dressel, the water supervisor, is here. He can also provide some insights on this. So let's get into the plan here. So the year one projects, which and again, after I go over this, I'll show you the picture again and explain what it is. That's a real word, the west flocculation tank. The wall and the floor liner need repair, so that's something that's immediate right now, and I have some pictures to show you, but the brick fascia on the side is bulging out and looks like that. It could fall off at any time, and so rather than waiting on that, we're looking at repairing that right away. Within that same tank is also a mixer and a motor, very old, they're somewhat original, and so they need to be replaced with the right stuff. On that same side of the building, on the west side, there's also sedimentation basins. So there's two of those. Again, it goes from flocculation to sedimentation, and those also need some repairs. From there, we're looking at where it says filter 8 repair. So we have 12 filters, and we're going to start off by repairing one of them. Filter 8 we know has an issue. There is a hole in filter 8, so we're starting with that one. It also gives us an idea of how much undertaking will be needed for it to replace all of the filters or to fix up the other filters. The detached garage, which I'll show you in the next picture, adjacent to the filter plant itself. That roof is in need of some immediate repairs as well. And the exterior garage door and emergency exit door need to be added. The exterior garage door needs to be fixed, emergency exit door added. Also, to meet some homeland security needs and of course some safety needs, because it is our drinking water supply, we need to expand the fencing and replace some of the fencing around it, and some code items and some safety items within the building, emergency signage and lighting and eye wash and showers in there, a lot of chemicals within the building, and safety for the guys that work up there. So the subtotal of that work, $979,800. The contingency is actually a 10% contingency there, because a lot of this work is, the fencing, the eye wash, and things like that. We don't believe that we need 15% contingency in there. So total construction with contingency, $1,078,000. The soft costs are mostly it's engineering, so engineering and administration for that. So the total 2020 project cost $1.2 million. Now it's this year one project is scheduled to begin in 2020. We won't have grant funding for the project by that point when we have to start this. So this is something that we would have to start right away if the council gives approval to be able to move forward with this portion of the project. And again, we've seen some issues there, so somewhat proactive, but it's because we've seen the issues, and otherwise we'll be dealing with emergency situations. So again, with that work, I'll try to get in here with the pointer and show you. So we're talking about the west side, which is over here where the pointer is. These first two black areas that you see here, this is actually these are the flocculation tanks. So this is where the water first goes in. Then from here, it goes to the sedimentation basin. So these are right here, sedimentation basins, and so is this that's under the concrete in the back here. Okay, so that whole area back there is sedimentation basins, and then from there, it travels this way into the filters, 6 on each side of the building. So there's 6 over here, and filter number 8 is on that side. So it kind of works out for us. So the idea is we can shut down that side of the filter plant, do all the work over there. The other side functions enough for us to be able to provide water to the city, and then we, as we work on that side, we can get that done. On the other side over here, this is the garage that needs the roof, the garage door, and the emergency exit. So that's the work that's scheduled for year 1. To give you a little bit of an idea there. Here's some pictures. Might be a little tough to really see because they're not 3D images of it, but again, you can see some ice coming out from the picture all the way to the left. That shouldn't be happening. That means water is coming out of that brick. There's not supposed to be water coming out of that brick, and it's freezing, so obviously there's water coming out of there. The middle picture is really difficult to see, but that brick where it's got the white on the outside, that's bulging out. It's bulging out about an inch or two, so it's pretty bad right there. And then again, you can see in some of the brick, obviously there's some holes and gaps in there. And again, it's 100 years old, so it's over that period of time. So that's year 1. I'll move a little bit quicker through the remaining years. So everything that we just talked about on the west side, now I'll move to the east side. Again, getting into those flocculation tanks, doing the wall floor liner repair, the mixer and the motor replacement. The east side, sedimentation basins, and then we move on to do 2 filter repairs. And again, we're trying to do our best to separate the money out strategically over the 5-year period. So again, $843,000 estimated in year 2 for the construction of it. Contingency of 15%. When you get into some of these things, you don't really know what you're in for because they haven't been really worked on in a while. Soft cost is engineering. So there's a 2020 projected cost of $1.15 million. But when you get to it being done in 2021, there's some escalation that needs to be put in there. The cost of bread always goes up. The cost of the pipes, the cost of the materials, and of course the salaries for the folks that would be doing the work always seem to go up as well. So that's factored into all of this and was factored into the grant application as well. So again, the year 2 projects, what we're looking at is the east side, so it's the work over here. Slightly different build on this side. The flocculation tank is here. It just looks like one bigger one, but it's the same size as the others. And then the sedimentation basins here, there's the covered one and the uncovered ones. And then we would do 2 filters on this side while we have it shut down. So that's what's scheduled for year 2 or 2021. Here's just a look at some of the issues on the east side. Again, a lot of the brick and mortar having some issues there. Year 3 project. So you've seen 2 of those sedimentation basins have roofs on them. It's to remove the roofs and replace them. They're crumbling. A lot of times that crumbling can lead to some of it dropping into the water and clogging up the sedimentation basin itself. So it's the replacement of that that's very costly. So that and 3 filter repairs. So as we move forward, we would do 3 each year, and that will get us through the 5 years. Again, 1.1 million, contingency of 170. Keep moving down, gives us a projected cost in this year of nearly 1.5, but with escalation puts us at about 1.6 million for year 3. So again, these sedimentation basins here, with the concrete over them, one on this side, one on the other, removing the roofs and replacing the roofs for those. This is just a look. Again, it might be tough to see with it on the wall and how it is, but obviously there's a lot of crumbling to that, and underneath, which we don't have pictures of, you wouldn't be able to tell, but there's also some crumbling there. That's what happened to the other ones as well. That's why they're not covered anymore. It got so bad that we just removed it, but we're talking about better safety and water quality by putting roofs back on. Year 4, the other 2 sedimentation basins that don't have roofs, putting roofs on those, installing those. Filter roof installation as well for over the filters. The aerator system, which I'll show you again, to be removed. We do not use it anymore. It's just continually crumbling, and as it wear and tears on that, it just causes issues in other areas. And then again, 3 more filter repairs. That gets us to 9 filters. And as we drop down with the escalation costs, we're talking about another about 1.9 million in that year. As we get to outlying years, obviously the escalation goes up. So again, these are the old aerators here. They basically look like stairs, and again, it's just for the water to go down. It puts oxygen in it and creates a better quality of water, but it's no longer necessary because of the system that we use now. We don't need aeration there. They've just sat there. If they're crumbling, they need to be removed. Year 5. So as we get into year 5, obviously we have the final 3 filters to be replaced, but a lot of the work here is really cosmetic, but more so geared towards the building. The building is in good shape, but to make it last for another 100 years, it does need a little bit more work. So the main building roof, windows and doors. The windows and doors, and I'm sure David would tell you this, they definitely need some replacement. They're not very efficient. You can feel the air coming through there, so those need to be replaced. And the doors, it's not paramount to the operation of the filter plant, but again, efficiency in making the building last. The piping gallery, including the catwalks and drains and leaks, again, sharpening that up, fixing up some of those areas. I do have some pictures of the piping gallery so you can see what that's like. Ventilation, heating system, floor drain repairs, all things that are extremely outdated and are in need of changing. The emergency generator, upgrading that. And again, with that being a small cost, if we felt the need that it needed to be done sooner, we could certainly do that. Moving a water pipe from the switch gear is just the placement of things is in a bad spot. And again, the final 3 filters. So a little bit less cost here because these are not the major parts of the production of the water or the treatment of the water. So we're looking at just about 1.1 million in 2024. So this is a little bit of the first 2 pictures are a look at the roof inside. Again, you don't see a lot of damage, but it's starting to deteriorate over years, so there's some work to be done there. It's likely that the roof doesn't need to be replaced, just probably repaired. And then again, outside it's just needs some maintenance on it, so it's not really calling for a full replacement, but rather some maintenance on it. So the pictures to the left, I tried to put up there the information about the boiler system that's there, but if you can see it close enough, it's an old system, very old system. Just the font and everything that's written on there is extremely old. So all of the systems that are in there, the heating systems, the ventilation systems are very old. The pictures to the right are actually the catwalk and piping gallery. So David and the guys are down there checking on things. If there's leaks that they have to fix, pumps that they have to fix, they're in there, and it's not really the best setup. So putting some things in there, some better catwalks and so on, will go a long way. So that's the capital plan. Within the engineering report, one of the things that DOH and EFC asked for you to do is to come up with alternatives. So this is a $7 million project, so a new filter plant cost would be $9 million to build. Doesn't sound too bad, but there's a couple of issues with that. Where is it going to be built? It can't be built right where the one is now, because how would we have water for the time that it was being built? And it's a few year kind of build. So it would have to be built in a different location, and it would be very difficult to do. We'd have to acquire land. There are options there. The other issue is the way that things are built now, especially for filter plants, they don't last like the buildings that we already have there from 100 years ago. So that $9 million is just to build it, but isn't the total cost of what it would take to get the job done. If we purchase water from another municipality, just the water purchase alone would cost $4 million. So that $4 million is more than what our water fund budget is now, and our total water fund budget would probably double to triple just based on that, so not really a feasible option. And of course, the last option is take no action and just fix these things as they break or crumble and fall apart. That's never been the way that we do things. We're proactive on these items, including the infrastructure work that we've just completed over the last 3 years. Those were proactive things, not waiting for water mains to break, taking care of them before we have those issues. So, my pitch to the council and to the public, I believe that it is imperative that the project begin and follow the estimated plan. If we do not move forward with what's on there for year one, we're going to be looking at some emergency issues, and it could cause us big problems with our water, to the point where we could have some problems where we need to take water from somewhere else, and then the costs are going to rise during that time. That happened in Green Island, and they had to double their rate for that purpose. So it's not something we want to do if we have the ability to stop it before it happens. It can be expedited if we get grant funding, so it might not take a full 5 years. We might be able to get it done in 3 years, but still having to keep in mind how much work it is, it would still have to be played out over that 3 years. I believe that year one must be prepared right away, and that we need to begin the work in early 2020, so that we don't have the damage up there. Future years can be scoped to fit the needs, so as we get into the filter, seeing what it is, if a generator needs to be done sooner, we can get it done sooner. But again, it's a plan, it's an estimate of what work needs to be done. Truly believe that this plant has lasted for 100 years, and if we do this work and we continue to maintain it in the way that we have or better, it will last for another 100 years. Between now and then, technology can change, how things go with water can change, but we all know we're always going to need water. Any questions on the filter plant capital plan or what we're looking at as far as plan of finance?
Jeremy, the engineering cost. All right, that's a pretty large item number. Is that being looked at
Is that being looked at, what?
to be bid?
Yeah, I would expect that we would want to RFP that to get it done. Maybe not year one, but there's a couple of different options. We could look at engineering the whole thing at once, but there's a lot of items like the filters. Once we get in there, we might want to make some modifications in the filters to change them to sand filters or whatever it might be. So that 15% is usual for these types of projects. Filter plant in Cohoes was, I believe, 15 or 16% for engineering. They just did a lot of upgrades to theirs, but it usually falls between 12 and 18% for engineering, so that's why we put 15% in there. It's the usual average, but I think an RFP would be good. Usually for engineering, we RFP rather than bid.
Right.
A lot more to it than just the dollars, but
Correct.
yeah, I would think so. And my suggestion would be that we RFP for this soon, so that the engineers can come in, they can start working on it, and we can start construction in early 2020 construction season.
What does this do to our water rates over the next 5 years, in addition to the tax increase with the county government?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things. There's a few things that we're working on. Hopefully I can have some more information available next meeting. But as far as the water rates go, so this is a water project, and so it really depends on the grant funding. So if we get the grant funding, that could be 4.2 million. So then we're coming out of pocket about 2.8, and more long term, probably 3-4 years from now. We do have some that comes off of our debt rolls from there. So it has very small implications into the future as to what it is. If we don't get the grants, it certainly does cost a little bit more. So that's a good question. We do look at that as we're looking at the project, and that's why we always say, that's why we changed it, the report, so that we can go for the grant funding. And again, that grant funding is 60% in total of the project. So if we were to get other federal or state grants, that takes off the total number. So it's not like we could get 4.2 and then another 2 from somebody else and another 1 from somebody else. That 60% is based off of what our costs will be at the end.
If you spent the $9 million and built it someplace else, and I mean, obviously, if you do it in Gilderland, it would make sense. Is that an option or no?
Yeah, so that $9 million building it somewhere else that wouldn't be our land probably looks more like 15. When you really get into acquiring the land and having to do some of the other builds with it. That was basically being considered if you built it in the same spot. So you had the same clear wells, you had the same piping, you had all of that. It was looked at years ago about teaming up with Gilderland and building one out there, raising the reservoir, selling more water, and it just didn't pan out. There is a feasibility study to do that. Relations with Gilderland at the current moment, not the best.
How will that affect us now, though? At the current moment, there's a possibility of a 20% increase. How is that going to affect our taxes this year? you know, or 2020? How is that? That's what we're kind of wondering, so we can all put that into.
Yep. So last meeting, we had a budget workshop. We talked about it, and just based on that number, before we did anything else, it looked like a 20% increase in the water rate. Currently working on the water and sewer budgets, and that'll be presented next week at the meeting. So we'll have some more numbers for you then. Yes.
Kind of hand in hand is the reservoir, and you know, my concern is always the condition of the reservoir. Could you give me an update on that?
Not really anything to update. We're at the mercy of DEC, so we did a study. We put together a plan. DEC had not commented on it until I put together the plan and sent it to them, kind of forcing them to give us some feedback. They gave us feedback, and we've just updated the plan, submitted it back to DEC and waiting for them, but they have to give us the permits and the permission to move forward. So luckily, in the meantime, there's been some technology changes, so there's actually a pretty good harvester for the water chestnut. So there is some positive news in waiting, I guess, but you know, that's a 20 to 30 year project. It won't go away at once. So it's going to be get out there and do a lot of work up front, and then maintain it over 20 to 30 years to get it done. At the same time, we do have a drinking water source protection program going on, no cost to the city. DEC has funded the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. We met with them, convinced them to do the study on our watershed. So those that like my analogies, you see Dave getting geared up for it in the back. The way that I look at the reservoir is it's like a ceiling tile, right? So if we have issues in the reservoir, it's like looking at a ceiling tile and seeing a stain on it. You can replace the ceiling tile, but where's the problem really coming from? And it's coming from the watershed. So what's getting into the reservoir are contaminants that are coming in from the streams that come from there, from the farms, from the development that's going out in Gilliland and Byrne and Knox, Altamont, all of those areas. So this study will look at the watershed itself and come up with rules and regulations out there. Then becomes the enforcement of it, which is difficult when we don't get to say in the enforcement. It's 3 counties and 19 municipalities, so this will help to hold them accountable.
Has any of these problems compromised the water for the residents of the city now, currently?
No. This is all being done prior to that. This is very proactive, getting out there, getting the study done. We've had great success with CDBG, so anytime we see something pop up, we come up with different ideas, and usually you'd have to go to an infrastructure group to get a grant like this. To be able to do it through the Community Development Block Grant really worked out for us, and then just progressing it from there.
And what's the status of that? Has that been completed and submitted? Is that in the pipeline? What's the status of the grant?
Yeah, so the grant is in the pipeline. It was just submitted 2 weeks ago, but this particular project is also on the intended use plan that EFC has. So it's on there as a project that will take place. Putting it on there also is extremely helpful in getting the money. One other thing, Steve, that you brought up about the funding for it. If we are able to get a grant and we fund it through EFC, there is an opportunity that we have low or no interest rate on the bonds that we do there through EFC because of the demographics of the city and things like that. So we've obviously applied for financing through them as well as part of the grant. So that's what that bond was for. We have to say we're able to bond through you if you finance us. So again, interest rates are low now, but no interest is always better than low. So there's an opportunity there. So that's it for the filter plant. You do have a couple of other things. I got to switch it, so talk amongst yourself. All right, that's enough talking amongst yourselves. Tonight is the presentation of the preliminary budget. I would have liked to have done it a little bit sooner because it's really what this is giving a high-end view of what the budget looks like before we make any changes to the budget. So it's really a pre-budget workshop. So if somebody's asking for increases in their budget, what are the ramifications based on what we already have here? But it does play in pretty good to the other things we have going on tonight, since we do have a public hearing on the tax cap. So this is the 2020 preliminary budget. This is not a full-scale budget. This is not, for a public hearing. This is not a presentation. It's just a preliminary view at the budget. I'll get into it. It's required under the city charter that the general manager provide a preliminary budget. It's usually in October, but it makes more sense to do it now. To utilize as a tool for decisions prior to the budget workshop. So again, what will the ramifications be of any increases that are asked for by the department heads? It is a view of the budget as a status quo budget. And then factoring in what I like to call the uncontrollable factors. The insurances, we rarely have control over that, very slightly if we can change or modify what it is. Contractual obligations, you can't get out of those. What our retirement costs are and what our debt schedule is. So again, it is not an official budget presentation, just to give an idea. The official budget presentation is in November. So, across the board this year, all unions are receiving a 1.5% salary increase. So that's police, fire, and CSEA unions, which is about 70 of our 85 employees within the city of Waterville. That 1.5 salary increase is equal to about $65,000 increase in expenses. Our liability insurance premium is estimated to increase 3%. That's about $2,400, so the premium is rather low in our liability insurance, but again, it's an increase. Retirement is estimated to increase at about $45,000. And our health insurance increases, what we're looking at is about 4.2 preliminary numbers for our premiums. I believe they're coming in next week to give us a little bit of a stronger number so we can put that into the budget. And again, based on that number and our copay trends, again, we reimburse copays to those that are in the insurance plan and our retirees. That number equals to, those increases equal to about $130,000 in increase. It's not all bad news. There is a potential decrease in our general fund debt. We are moving forward with going long-term with our debt and spacing it out over the next 20 years. So we do have a decrease in our general fund debt of about $13,000. So again, these are what I like to call the uncontrollables. So what does that mean? That's a $230,000 roughly increase in expenses from 19 to 20. So without any other factors, without looking at any of our revenues as we get into the budget, without looking at any other increases in expenses or decreases in expenses through each of the departments, that itself is a tax rate increase of 4.5%. Okay, so when we talk about the tax cap, that doesn't have anything to do with the tax rate. We'll talk about that when we get into the public hearing. But that number, based on those expenses, is an increase of 4.5% of your tax rate. Okay, which I believe is about, I had the numbers before, it's about $65, $75 a year. Okay, increase. And again, additional expenses put into the budget or any decreased revenues would also increase the rate. So those are the things for the public to keep in mind and for the council to keep in mind as they're giving information to the general manager and director of finance to put the final budget together. So in the meantime, we had the budget workshops to work out these situations and to see where we get to with the budget. There's negotiations with outside agencies. We've been pretty successful with those in the past few years, whether it be workers' comp or liability insurance. Health insurance is a little bit rough. They kind of, they set their own mark and the state tells them whether they can or cannot. Another thing we can do is changes in service. And what I mean by changes in service is we do have some options. It was in the FRB report. We're currently reviewing what it would look like in workers' comp. So right now we have a pretty high premium, but we also have a high deductible. We're looking at self-insuring and what does that mean so that we can get that information and present that to the council for consideration as well. That could be a decreased expense, but with that comes some risk. So we're looking for ways to increase revenues and decrease expenses. That way that rate is not 4.5% when it is presented and then finally adopted by the council. That is the preliminary look at the budget. Again, not getting into the lines, that's what happens at the budget workshop. a couple other small things, but any questions on that preliminary overview of the budget before we move on? Very good. So since we're talking about some financial news, we'll get into some good news. We've had some good news over the past few years. We definitely have from a financial end. Fiscal stress report that comes out every year. It was big news a couple years ago. It was still in the news last year. You probably won't read it in the news this year because it's good news, so they don't come running around for that. In 2017, based off of the 2016 finances, we had an increase to significantly stressed, and we had a score of 75.8. We reduced that to moderate stress in 2018, based on the 2017 numbers, to a score of 69.2. For this year, based off of our 2018 finances, we've dropped the score down to a score of 50. That puts us at susceptible, what's considered the susceptible level. 45 would be no designation, and we're just knocking on the door of no designation. So this is our lowest score in the city's history since this has been around. So our finances continue to get better. Fiscal stress is really based on two things. It's based on how much fund balance you have and how much cash in hand you have on December 31st. So basically what it means is we have enough cash to get through the year without having to borrow any money to make payroll, those types of things. So if we get into a year, a portion where we're really tight with money, we still have enough money on hand, and we're not really susceptible to any issues. There's a couple of different things here. We have increased fund balance each of the last 2 years, and we have funded our reserves very well over the last 2 years. So those factor into it. There is a website there, but if you go to OSC, local government, and you click on fiscal stress, you can see it there. It's really good to see because for the last 3 years, we've been on the first page, and now we're not on the first page anymore. There are others that are on there, and we're below a lot of those. And based on what we're looking at for the numbers, and I won't get too far into projections for the end of 2019, but I believe when this is presented next year, we can say no designation. Because like I said, we're knocking on the door, and we continue to make strides and do things with our finances to continue to improve them. So there should be no designation next year, and we should be low, the score of 45. Questions on fiscal stress? Only one last thing, I promise. The city was announced today by the Department of Environmental Conservation out in Buffalo that the city has recertified as a climate smart community. We were one of the first communities to be a climate smart community. Quite a few years ago, there was a presentation down in Hudson Shores Park for the mayor. We are one of 2 communities in the capital region that is bronze certified climate smart community. We are the first to recertify along with the city of Albany. We scored 121 points with 19 completed actions. What does that mean? Just different climate smart things that we've been doing throughout time, the past 5 or 6 years. And these are some of the items: building a climate smart community, having a climate action plan, decreasing energy usage, using clean and renewable energy, climate smart materials management, climate smart land use, which has been adopted, getting climate smart ideas out there on social media, having climate partnerships with other municipalities, and innovation. And a couple of those, about 2 or 3 of those items really deal with the anaerobic digester that we have for our WOW program. And as we continue to progress that, we continue to score points with that. I promise you all, that's all I have. More than enough time. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, old business?
In old business, we have a public hearing. Public hearing for the purpose of hearing those persons who wish to be heard regarding proposed local law number 4 for the year 2019. A local law to override the tax levy limit established by general municipal law for the 2020 City of Waterville budget.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Want to introduce it?
Yeah, so, again, as we just went over some of the budget information up there, just an explanation of what the tax cap is. That is based on the levy, how much money is brought in from taxes, from your taxes that you get a bill for. So a 2% cap on that means that we can only increase that amount of money by 2%. So the numbers last year that we brought in from the levy, $5,120,000. Okay, so 2% from that would be we could bring in $5,222,000. So a difference of $102,000. That's how much more money we can bring in tax revenue. So it doesn't have anything to do with the rate, so to speak. It just has to do with the money that we bring in. So here is an example, and I'll give a plug to our assessor. Our new assessor has been here for a little bit over a year, has done a fantastic job, and has gone out and found some issues that we had in our assessment, and was able to make those changes, which really don't have much effect on the property owners, just classifying them in the proper way. And so that's an increase in our assessable, our tax assessment. So what that equaled to was almost $4 million. So our taxable assessment went up $4 million, which didn't have an effect on any of your taxes, but just charging certain properties the proper amount or classifications. That amounts to about $55,000. So that in and of itself has already put us halfway towards the tax cap. So that's what it's talking about, is what we can bring in from the tax revenue. So it doesn't have a direct effect on your tax rate, just the levy and the amount that we can bring in. And so that 2%. So most, if not all, communities do pass this local law to exceed the tax cap because you don't know what's going to happen. Health insurance numbers come in and all of a sudden you have to cover that, those types of things. So this public hearing would be to present to the council your feelings on whether or not to pass this local law. But please rest assured that I know that the council, myself as general manager and the director of finance, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we do not have to exceed that. But that is the explanation of it. I hope I did a good job. It's complicated. I get confused talking about it every day with Mike McNeff. So I hope you understand what the tax cap means. And if anybody has any comments, you can step forward, state your name and address because it is official comment. And you can address the council on the tax cap.
Anyone wish to speak on that? This is just so that we can pass it if we need it. It doesn't mean we're doing it.
Just to comment on that one more time, if the council decides to pass it and we don't need to do it, then we just rescind it at a later date. That's been done previous years, not the last two, but every year before that.
Once, twice. Close the public hearing.
Brings us to new business. New business, we have local law number 4 for the year 2019. A local law to override the tax levy limit established by general municipal law for the 2020 City of Waterville budget.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on this resolution.
I second that. Any discussion? Make a note in the record that there were no comments made at the public hearing. Any other comments from here? Okay. Nope. Scott, call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor?
Councilman McGratty.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Next, we have resolution number 9657. The council of the City of Waterville hereby authorizes and directs Scott O'Reilly, city clerk and clerk to the council, to advertise once in the official newspaper of the city that sealed bids will be received in the city clerk's office until 10 a.m. on October 18, 2019 for furnishing zinc phosphate, chlorine, and polyaluminum chloride for the City of Waterville Water Department.
I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution number 9657 as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So these are chemicals that are used at the filter plant to treat our water. We go out to bid every 3 years for it, and it's up to go out to bid. So this is the bidding process for those chemicals.
Questions?
Do we usually get a number of bids?
Yeah, we usually, some won't bid on each of these, some will only bid on certain things, but we usually get, about 3 to 4 bids on each of them. One of them we get a little bit less, I'm not sure which one it is, it might be the poly-aluminum that we get a little bit less. We do get, and we've been contacted asking when these bids are going to be, everybody's been waiting, so, yeah.
Good. Call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli?
In favor?
Councilman McGrady?
In favor?
Mayor Manning?
In favor?
Next, we have resolution number 9658. Council of the City of Waterville hereby establishes the following as stated on the attached standard workday and reporting resolution, which is incorporated herein and made a part hereof as a standard workday for Mayor Michael P. Manning and will report to the New York State and local employees retirement system based on his record of activities.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on this resolution.
I second that.
Discussion?
This is required by the state for any elected officials that are in the retirement system. Mayor Manning is the only one that is still in the retirement system. So we must do this and then submit it to the retirement system.
Good. Call the roll, Scott.
Councilman Petroselli?
In favor?
Councilman McGrady?
In favor?
Mayor Manning?
Should I not vote on
No.
it at this point? Abstain.
Next, we have resolution number 9659. Council of the City of Waterville hereby approves an agreement between the City of Waterville and Nicholas J. Marino and Company with an address of 3 Marcus Boulevard in Albany, New York, to provide sexual harassment prevention training videos to be utilized by all City of Waterville employees.
Make a motion to accept resolution number 9657 as written.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
So this is an agreement with the company to provide us with the mandatory sexual harassment training for all employees.
This has to be done by when?
October 9th
For everybody.
for every employee of the city, yes. I was expecting to be able to do the training, but do not have the ability or time to do it, so we had to acquire this from someone.
Now, once we log into this, that there's a certification that's made on that?
Yep, so once you complete it and pass the test at the end, you then receive a certification. So you'll receive a specific certification yourself when you sign in, and it will upload to the system, so then we will receive that certification that you completed as well. And then we submit those to the state, or have them on hand if the state comes and wants us.
How long is the session?
I'm not specifically sure. It's one of those ones that's kind of at your own pace. The faster you read and answer the questions, the faster you can get through it.
How you going to handle like DPW?
And so we're working on that now. We may still present specifically to them, the ones that don't have computer access.
Good?
Yes.
Good?
Good.
Scott, call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli?
In favor?
Councilman McGrady?
In favor?
Mayor Manning?
In favor?
Next, we have resolution number 9660. Council of the City of Waterville hereby approves a community choice aggregation administration agreement between the City of Waterville and Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance, or MEGA, to assist with efforts to explore the potential benefits to this community of creating a CCA here and in educating the public and local officials on CCAs.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on this resolution.
I second that.
Discussion?
Yeah, so a lot of information in there, that probably blow your mind a little bit. So this basically kicks off one of the many shared services initiatives put together by County Executive McCoy, his staff, and local officials. This in particular is an agreement to begin looking at community choice aggregation, which is the purchase of energy by multiple municipalities to get the energy in bulk, which then reduces the cost to the taxpayers. This is not specifically a governmental operation, so it won't affect the taxes or anything like that, but it affects the taxpayer specifically. So what this agreement is for is to have MEGA begin some community outreach, education, and do some research. And they've been acquired by all of the communities that have joined to do this. And once they get that done, they can come back with some numbers as to what would the cost savings be for you on your specific energy bills. So what it would basically do is, it would mean that you would no longer, you would receive 2 bills. You'd receive the National Grid distribution, but your energy supply would be coming from somebody else at a reduced rate than what National Grid was charging you for your electricity. So it reduces your specific costs for electricity. All of that said, this is the research to determine what that is and whether or not the council would like to move forward with that. Before they can move forward with that, Mega would come in, they would do a presentation, there would be a public hearing, and the council would have to pass a local law to end up moving forward with this. But it would be a specific cost savings to you as a taxpayer and a bill payer of your electricity.
My concern was who's maintaining the electricity and who's maintaining the gas lines when we're getting this savings. The National Grid takes a loss on the volume of gas and electricity that they have. So I'm assuming that they're going to bill us for service next.
Yeah, so there's
So the
supply.
saving we're going to see will be eaten up by service charges.
So there's supply and then there's distribution. So this would be handling the supply. The National Grid provides the distribution. There's nobody else that can provide the distribution. So Grid could, if they felt they were losing money, they could raise their distribution rates. I'm sure that is a possibility. But if 6 other communities are doing this and Grid is losing money, we're going to feel that as well. It wouldn't just be Watervliet because they changed their distribution across the board. So it's possible we could feel that effect. That would definitely be a question for the folks from Mega when they came in. So definitely save that one for them.
Those distribution rates are set by the public, or set by the state anyway, so I mean, they have to go back to them and say, hey, if you want to do this.
Correct.
So I mean, it's not something you can just come back with you tomorrow and say, hey, we're raising your rates.
This type of, let's say, offer or companies have been around for years. I mean, they've been providing on an individual basis.
Correct.
You know, they've been providing this. A lot of them, quite honestly, have had scams.
Mhm.
You know, they
Sure.
didn't come out as good as they were. They were very expensive. National Grid went, the supply went down, and they weren't adjusted for it. And people were paying a lot. So, I mean, I'm very, cautiously pessimistic about it, but I'm willing to look at it and explore it. Well, what other communities within the county now have joined us?
Yep, so Bethlehem is on board, New Scotland is on board. New Scotland has kind of led the way on it, so I'll give them credit for that. Guilderland is on board with this, Niskayuna, and then there's some others that are outside of it. But there's others that are jumping on a little bit after us. Albany is looking at this, which is obviously a huge amount of electricity. It's mostly been the town so far. The city of Troy is also looking to jump on it. They're not within the county. And multiple areas in Saratoga County are also working with Mega. So even though we're doing it as a county, the more folks that get involved, obviously, the more savings of it. And to your other concern, Mega is a big company. They're out of Central New York. They've done this in Central New York and have had great success. And they were one of 4 companies that were looked at for this, and Mega was the one that was chosen when each of the communities reviewed the information.
So, you mentioned that it was shared services. What benefit do we get as a city? Is it just the lower rates, or is it there are other shared service benefits that we get from the state?
So there's a chance that the state still hasn't determined how they are going to distribute that money that they budgeted for shared services, countywide shared services, but there is a chance that we could do this, but they're looking more at what it does to decrease taxes. So there may not be any awards coming from the state because we move forward with this. It was just one of the plans that was put into that plan. It's for us to come together and to work together as a county, but there wouldn't be any specific awards given to the city. I don't believe that there will be. I'm sure the state will find a way out of that.
This
is just a look.
Should I give my name and address?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to ask you, is this electricity only?
Yes, this is just for electricity. And just so that, and again, Mega will come in and they will do, you'll hear from them and you'll know a little bit more about it. But there is an opt-out if you don't want to be a part of it. So if the council decides that, they want to move forward with this for all of the residents of the city of Waterville, you can opt out of it and you don't have to be a part of it. There's just a form that you fill out and turn it in.
Right, and that was the other question I really had too, because I don't like the idea of opting out. I prefer opting in, because that means all of a sudden everybody starts getting a bill and they don't even know what it is because they weren't paying attention, or wherever. I didn't get the notice, I didn't see nothing, and I don't know what it meant.
But that's all part of the public outreach that Meg is going to do, is to let everybody know what this is
Can
about.
they do the census at the same time?
Yeah, maybe they can. We'll probably work on it to get that together. But yes, the way, and this isn't decided by us, it's not decided by MEGA, it's decided by the federal government who determines this, that you have to do it this way, and it's just an opt-out, not an opt-in. We're not giving a choice. But again, this is to get the information out there and to do the research and to be able to provide that information to the council and to the public, so that there can be a public hearing and the council can consider whether or not it's the right move.
One more question, what's the timetable on this?
So I believe if it is approved, they can get started right away. They will probably be back in here, I would say, looking November to come in to do a public hearing, but it would be planned to move forward in early 2020. So they'll be doing outreach and education in the month of October, probably publish for the public hearing in November, possibly approve it in December, and have it start up in January. And the backup materials to all of this have been distributed to the council for review previously and throughout the process.
Good. Call roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGratty.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Up next, we have resolution number 9661. Council of the City of Waterville hereby accepts and approves the proposal from Weston and Sampson, located at 1 Winter Circle in Albany, New York, to provide engineering services for the City of Waterville regarding the Hudson Shores Park Shoreline Stabilization and Improvements Project.
I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution number 9661 as written.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, so a few years back, DEC funded a study for shoreline stabilization at Hudson Shores. Weston and Sampson, together with Gomez and Sullivan, were chosen by DEC to complete this study, which went all the way to the end in preparing the bid documents to be able to go out if we decided to move forward with this project. We took that information and we used it as part of a grant application with the Department of State. We received that grant from the Department of State. But also along with that grant, we looked at our local waterfront revitalization plan, and there were some amenities upgrades to Hudson Shores Park as well. So all of the amenities upgrades that were mentioned in the LWRP, we put into that grant as well. So basically what this resolution for is to bring Weston and Sampson back and to complete those bid documents with the new information that we put into the grant. Weston and Sampson also did provided us with the information for these amenities to the grant. So they already have all the information, they've already put together the bid documents. It's adding into that, and then once we move forward with the project, since they have the knowledge of it, they'll provide the construction inspection during that project. The construction inspection itself is covered by the grant.
Call roll, Scott.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGratty.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Next, we have resolution number 9662. Council of the City of Waterville hereby approves a memorandum of understanding, cost reimbursement agreement, and vehicle use agreement between the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the City of Waterville Police Department.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on this resolution.
Second that.
Discussion?
So this is continuing our work. Chief Gerasi has been working well with the other agencies that surround us. This particular one is an agreement with the FBI, really to share resources with one another, which obviously the FBI has more resources that we will probably use and they will probably use from us. But it does provide reimbursement for overtime if we have to provide any to them, and also a vehicle for use as well. So all positive for us. We had 3 of these at the last meeting, so chief just keeps going with these, and I don't expect much. I think we're out of people that we can partner up with, but I'm sure he'll continue to surprise.
Scott, call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGratty.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Mr. Mayor, to the best of my knowledge, that's all we have in new business.
Mayor, I'd like to introduce a resolution to authorize a policy basically on bulk item removal. Do you want me to read it, Scott, or do you want me to read it?
The proposed resolution by Councilman Petroselli states, this resolution provides all residential property owners the ability to obtain a permit at a cost of $25 to have items picked up at their home for all 1 or 2 family homes and $50 for those with 3 or more units. And all pickups cannot exceed a size of 4 by 8 in size and must comply with the rules and regulations described on the city's website. Owners must submit a permit either via email or in person, submitted to the city clerk's office. Sanitation department will then be authorized to pick up the bulk items on their regularly scheduled weekly pickup based upon the schedule provided by the city clerk and the sanitation department. Any items placed without obtaining a permit will be subject to violation and fine.
Is that the policy in total?
Pretty much, yeah.
Isn't it what we have on our books already?
I don't think we have anything really on our books. I think we just have a policy. This would actually change it a little bit, I think, as we discussed probably the last October 3rd meeting.
So these are proposed changes to our policy, existing policy.
So it's not in, so this particularly, the bulk item pickup that we have now, which is $10 to drop off, $20 to pick up for seniors, is not specifically an adopted policy. It's something, a management policy that was put in place. And so the differences with this as compared to that would be a slight increase in the pickup for it and the time in which it would be picked up. So right now it's the last Friday of the month. This resolves to put it from $20 to $25 or $50 depending on the size of the unit, and then having it be picked up on the regularly scheduled weekly pickup by the sanitation department. So those are the 2 changes. So if adopted, this would be an official policy that then would only be able to be changed by the council itself. I'm not sure if it could be done by resolution or if it would have to be done by ordinance to be placed in the code or change the code.
Yeah, I know that there's been conversations that have been had during the council meeting regarding bulk pickup, and I know I had an opportunity to speak with Councilman Petroselli today about his intention to try to come to an understanding and an agreement amongst everybody with respect to the bulk item pickup. But we do have in our code a section with respect to bulk items, and it would be a position that we could reword that in the ordinance to incorporate, the terms and conditions that, or the language that Councilman Petroselli is requesting that be used. So, I mean, certainly there's a way to do it with respect to policy, but there's certain enforcement measures in here. And I don't think it'll take me very long to, rework this and have it on the agenda if that's what everybody comes to an agreement with for the next meeting, which is next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just saying, I'd like to have the guys who have to do it, have Chris Dawes and such take a look at it, as far as what day. What if you're a renter, questions like that. If you're a renter, you can't do it, or you gotta get your landlord to do it, or this state's property owners. So, just some things to scrub it.
Tenants are probably the worst use of this bulk.
I can't hear.
I was saying the tenants are probably the worst abusers of this bulk week, because I also own property, and every time they move out, I have a house full of crap. So what do? You know, so maybe we should put a fee on tenants when they move in, because they're always gonna leave stuff behind. It's not the homeowner, because they've been giving slowly. They don't have the bulk of the crap that the tenants leave out, I'm telling you.
Tenants are the ones putting the stuff out after they move out?
No, the homeowner has to, because the tenants left it. I've been in the tenants business for 40 years, I know.
So this would be, so again, this would,
Hold on a second, folks, hold on 1 second.
a policy, a proposed policy can be adopted by resolution, but if it's something that's going into an existing section of the code, it would have to be done by ordinance. So what you were just saying is you can basically take this, work it into an ordinance, I guess, ask and answer those questions that have been raised today, and speak to the department head as well, and be able to prepare an ordinance for the next meeting.
Yeah, so the real issue is, since the proposed language deals with the issue of obtaining a permit and the cost of it, and if you're going to enforce those individuals who do not obtain the permit and do it in violation of what is being proposed, you know, it should be placed in our code and specifically have the enforcement part of it, so.
But we're doing it now. We have, I mean, they have to pay the permit, right, or what do we call permit, or a fee, or pay a fee. So it's one of the things we're doing now. This will probably solidify it and make it, probably done more properly.
In the current policy, we don't have an enforcement.
Just other sections of the code where people put things out.
They put things out, like somebody
blocking
puts some
the right
stuff
of
out
way.
there on the street.
All right.
Well, I would just encourage everyone to take a look at
Yep.
the code prior to the next meeting. It's
Right now.
it's Article 1.
So we wouldn't need to move on.
No, we'll do it next week.
One question?
I've been a resident and homeowner of Waterloo for over 20 years. I'm just wondering why now is this just an issue when apparently hearsay by me, or to me, that this money was already allocated, that our residents would have our normal bulk week, and now a month or 2 months, not even before it's scheduled to be done, all of a sudden it's being pulled out from under us.
So it was not budgeted to have a second bulk week.
Oh, wait a minute, I
That was
Hold
gone
on,
over
hold
before.
on, hold on.
We do have a public comment period at the end, and I know there's probably a lot of people here to talk about bulk week, so.
Well, it
we'd
says
ask
it on
that
the
you
website
say
too. It does say it. It says every spring and every fall.
Yeah.
It does say that.
So there's going to be a draft, Councilman Patricelli proposed a draft solution. This is going to be put into a more formal document, and we'll hear comments on that next week, because that's what's going to happen.
Oh, so what we said, you think.
No, you can still talk during public comment period. But this issue has just been closed at this point of this session. It's not dead. We're still in the legislative session, all right?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yep, I think it's fair.
Scott? Go to appropriation and accounting.
All right. In appropriation and accounting, resolution number 9663. Council of the City of Waterloo hereby authorizes the increase of funds of certain expenditure accounts and certain revenue accounts in the annual estimate that has become necessary due to unforeseen circumstances.
I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution number 9663 as written.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, so there's several budgetary moves here, each of which have been provided to the council. They're all budget neutral, so no effects really on the budget. In particular, in the water fund or the F fund, there's a movement of monies either from increased revenues or decreased expenses. That way we can increase and pay our tax bill to the town of Guilderland, to increase that on us. If you want to talk about that more, I'll be around later. The other is utilizing increased revenues from the police department to cover an increase in the police department's overtime, and the revenues directly reflect the overtime work. So again, budget neutral, increase in revenues, increase in expenditures. On the water side, decrease in expenditures to cover the cost of the increased tax.
I'm good.
Scott?
Councilman Patricelli?
In favor.
Councilman McGratty?
In favor.
Mayor May?
In favor.
And that's all we have in appropriations and accounts.
Guys, come, folks.
Just a few items I was going to ask about. Was there any movement yet on the sewer cleaning machines that we were able to get from the county?
Oh, to borrow from the county? No, they haven't been able to provide it, so we actually worked out a deal with the city of Troy, where they'll be able to provide us the service at no cost.
So this year?
Yep, this year, yeah. But usually we do a lot of it when the leaves start to fall as well. That's when the main one, so but we're working with them. They actually have 2 trucks, so they're more than willing to give it to us. We talked to their water supervisor over there, and David's working with them.
I know on probably, I don't know, a few months ago, we talked about doing some inspections in some of the city buildings, and I started this past week, really, I went to the firehouse, and I got a whole shopping list of items that needed to been, or should be addressed, and I was just wondering how we're going to be able to handle some of them. Many of them are kind of minor. Some of them were basically related to work that was done at the firehouse that has, that has not been, let's say, completed right, or had issues with it. I mean, most of them I think are kind of like minor, but they all add up. Some, of course, are a little bigger than that. But I have the list. I promised I was going to submit it and kind of look at it and say, what can we do about it? I'd like to ask the chief if he wouldn't mind taking that list and kind of looking on it with whoever's got to be looked at, and let's get some of them done.
Sure.
Okay, I'll give you.
The record?
I gave Scott a copy of them. Did I not, Scott?
Yeah.
So I wanted to pass it down to the chief. I just want to make a comment on, I believe that I had made inquiries about the dog park. There is a meeting that's been set.
Yes.
And talked about, so.
That is correct.
That's being worked on. The other thing too, Jeremy, we talked about the maintenance of the trucks and, let's say, the logs that we're keeping.
Yep.
When I was over at the firehouse, it kind of caught my eye. A couple of the trucks had expired inspection stickers.
A couple of the DPW trucks or the fires?
No, DPW trucks. DPW trucks. And I didn't go any further than that. I didn't really look at them, but are we really looking at those maintenance or those log records? And is there some kind of a plan on that that'd be able to keep them? Because really, it's an issue that really we should not have had.
We have somebody that's specifically in charge of that. It's our MEL1 that's in charge of that, so I'll have to get in touch with the MEL1 and make sure, but we do receive, he provides the logs and we follow through with them, so I have to keep up on him to make sure that he's doing what he's supposed to do.
He's getting paid extra for that.
He does get paid extra as part of his, part of his employment.
Okay. And then just in all fairness, are we, and I know this is an issue, I know this, can you give us a rundown on what's going on with the CDTA work that's being done and possibly, and I know Mr. Yuban isn't here tonight, but I know he had a lot of issues. Has he at all been kind of like informed of what's going on?
So Mr. Yuban's been informed multiple times as to what is going on. So again, the CDTA BRT route, the work that they're doing is taking place in the public right-of-way. So it's not taking place on private property, so it doesn't have to go to the building department to get a building permit, things like that. It follows the permit process for doing things in the public right-of-way. It's been a 5-year program, or 5-year planning, that again went back to multiple different chiefs when they were here, and General Manager Mark Gleason was here when it first started, so it's kind of progressed from there. There's been some negotiating because CDTA wanted to do some things that we were not okay with. They wanted to add bump outs at each of the spots, and we've heard from the public that they don't like bump outs, so those weren't added. So it was settled on for work to be done in front of the Elks, kitty corner from Stewart's down in Port Schuyler. Those are the DRT stops on the south end of the city, and on the north end of the city, 19th Street, 2nd Avenue. So you see them doing the work. They've removed sidewalk. They are putting in some electrical conduit to go to where the shelters will be, and then they're making it all ADA compliant. In front of Mr. Yuban's property specifically, there's also going to be a pull-off for the bus to pull out of traffic, and the shelter place there. So currently, They have removed it all. They've been back this week and have put the new curbing in. And we're starting on the electrical work, and we're probably about a week or two away from them doing their final restoration of those sidewalks. So really what they're doing right now is replacing the sidewalks with new sidewalks. And then next year, around this time, will be the placement of new shelters, and then the BRT route will be up and running. And with that also comes some new striping, and we're still negotiating paving where this new striping is going to take place. And we're pretty close to getting that fully paid for as well. We don't like to have the striping grinded and then restriped. We'd rather have it milled and paved. They weren't really for that, but we're getting there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good ones. Scott, public comment period?
This time, the council has authorized a public comment period. If you wish to address the council, you must step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the council on any matters you wish. At the end of your comment, the council may reply or choose to reply at a later date, if they so choose.
Hello, Jennifer Sawyer, 1517 Avenue A, Waterbury. First, I'd like to commend the fire department and the police department for their jobs that they did today on 787. It's amazing their child came out of that. Or man, I'm sorry. But I apologize for not being at last month's meeting or last night's meeting when it was decided that it wasn't feasible for bulk trash to happen again this year. Unfortunately, your website says 2 bulk pickups. So that's contradicting what's there. I understand it may not be financially feasible, but in your own words, Jeremy, you have said unconditional factors more time, uncontrollable factors that you budget in to each aspect of the budget itself, each department per se. So why wasn't this thought of as an up-and-coming thing when it was basic public knowledge since probably 2017 that the increase in recyclables was going to be there and the increase of landfill costs were going to be there. So that should have already been budgeted in as an uncontrollable factor, as you see. So I do agree with we have to move forward in a more economical manner. I'm not sure how $25 for a 4x8 section and probably leads to, let's say they have a couple cast iron things in there, it's gonna be more. You know, it's not really gonna be feasible to say $25 covers your 4x8 section that is adding 1,000 pounds. That doesn't mean. But I think for this year, in all honesty and truthfulness, and to go by what your website actually says, we have to go through with the bulk trash pickup for October, as was planned. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy LaCrosse, and I reside at 52 Bott Road, but also have a family home at 1503 4th Ave. 2 weeks ago, my mother's home was hit by gunfire. This was a known drug house that had been raided twice by the sheriff's department. There's been knife fights, there's been physical fights. For years, we've dealt with it. We've gone to the landlord, and the landlord always told us he was going to evict the tenant. He took the tenant to court 7 times and withdrew the evictions. Now I would like to ask that we do something as a city to get these tenants that are violating my mother, who's lived there for 62 years, cannot feel safe in her own home. They don't deserve this. I would like to go on the record and ask that reinstate the public nuisance law. This law, Troy already has in effect. We have it on the books, but we just need to reinstate it. Thank you.
law is on the books now, right?
Yes, it is.
And what's being done to enforce it?
Well, since I have, well, the law has been, to answer your question directly, when Chief Spain was in office, there were 2 properties where we had in fact utilized our public nuisance abatement law to hold the landlord responsible for certain activities that actually occurred within the home. So with respect to the matter at hand that Mr. Cross had indicated today, Chief Gerasi and I have discussed this matter, and it is my understanding that we're going to proceed with some enforcement action with respect to the home. So we've taken a look at it again, of course, with this specific situation that occurred, and it's my understanding we're going to move forward with it.
And I think that would certainly help, but I think what we're probably more concerned about is probably what led up to that, the number of times we've had, they've had sheriff visits or arrests or something like that. So we did have the point system, and I believe that's still in place.
No, we had the point system before, and then we repealed that specific section and passed another ordinance that deals with the same issues other than the point. So the real issue is really this, okay? You have what is occurring, but in order to take action, it has to come to, the attention of, either myself or the city administration to move forward with the actual enforcement. So, the point system previously, I got to be personally honest with you, I don't think it matters with respect to points. It's what's current, where you can take the action. The point system, the way we had it, I just from a personal perspective, didn't think it was working as far as tracking. But we can certainly move forward in that with respect to what occurred.
Does there have to be a conviction? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Who brings it to the attention then, I guess? So is it going to be Chief, is it going to be you?
So yes.
That's going to bring that to the attention of, that's the only confusion that I heard.
So I've already commenced this action. I brought it to the attention to Corporation Council, to the mayor, and to the landowner, property owner. So that's already been commenced. So what you've stated is true, that the landlord has brought this tenant to court a number of times. But what's nice about the current nuisance abatement is you don't need to prove a course of conduct or engage in a course of conduct over years. We're actually looking at this isolated incident. So the nuisance abatement, there's one specific subsection that deals with prohibited weapons, firearms, and firearms offenses. So regardless of what has occurred, even though it's very important, we can move forward based on that one incident 2 weeks ago. And that's what I'm focusing on. And I've already commenced the action.
And I'm talking even more so this action, future actions, like, I guess that it's going to come from you to the council, mayor, and that's, I guess, not just this action, future actions.
Yeah, so for future actions, obviously, there's going to be certain things that are going to be on our radar, right? High-profile situations or violent situations, dangerous situations like this that got so much attention, and rightly so. But in the future, we really need that open communication with the residents. And because there's going to be quality of life issues that maybe don't rise to the level of even calling 911, right? So the neighbors and the residents in this community are in the best position to see those right away. So that's where we need that open line of communication, through social media, through just developing relationships. Officers walking the beat, riding bicycles. So that's how I intend on addressing it in the future. Absolutely, it's a good question.
The one other question I had was if this was a weapons violation that would make a eviction or removal from that property, and I know it's alleged or not alleged, but I don't know, we have it documented, but she claims that there was a sheriff arrest for knife incident or something. If that was the case, could they have been removed back then?
As the law stands now, yes. I don't know what the law stood at that time. But there was, in fact, 2 search warrants conducted at that residence by the Waterloo Police Department, maybe in conjunction with the Sheriff's Office.
We had the dogs there 2 times previously, and there was a knife fight, all with the same tenant.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, if there was a knife fight and if there was actually an arrest for that knife fight, could that have then initiated a removal at that point? I mean, I know you can't do it, it wasn't on your watch, so we can't really, but if we missed that opportunity, you know, that's something that we probably, you know, have to watch out for a little closer the next
No, I
time.
I understand exactly what you're saying. You're basically stating that, you know, if there has been other instances at that residence, then if it's classified within our law as a specified public nuisance, based upon the language in our law, then the answer to that is yes, that you could take action pursuant to this. So,
Just to answer your question, Mr. Torricello, you don't need a conviction, you don't even need, the standard of proof is preponderance of evidence.
Right.
So it's 51%. It's likely that it occurred. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. So you don't even need an arrest, you don't need a conviction. It's just facts and circumstances as I presented to the council.
Thank you.
Hank, did you have some?
I left a message on the investigator's phone, I say maybe a week ago or so. I have a friend who lives about a block from Mrs. LaCrosse. She also has a drug-infested home next to her. In fact, one of the residents spent time in jail for dealing drugs and has now come back home. And she's scared to death of the same thing. She said there's a lot of drug activity going on, but I haven't heard anything back from the investigator. I'm hoping that you're aware of that I did leave that call.
Okay. Can you see me before you leave?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you.
Any more on that? Anyone else want to? Oh, sorry. We're blending into the wall.
Andrew Hughes, 108 15th Street. What's going on with the church? The lights outside do not work. If we come out at nighttime, like at our dinners, we'll leave and it's still dark. There's none of the lights work, or actually, this one right here does work.
The lights outside of this building.
Yep.
Has it been reported?
Yep. And the third thing is there any way we can, the third Wednesday of each month is our, we have our big dinners. And I know you guys all park over, we're having people not show up and it costs us money because all the parking spots are full. There's no parking for our seniors to come in for lunch or for dinner, so they just drive away. Is there something we can work somewhere so we can get more parking for our residents? Or like when the police, for a long time, they were parking out back. 4 cars, 6 cars, and that's where our cooks, Kathy, me, will park out there to not park out here.
I don't have a solution for parking. We have the parking lots. You know, we can attempt to park a little bit further away so that the seniors can park closer. That's what we began to do when we were working on the church. I don't know that we have any area to create more parking, but certainly look at it, and then I can speak to the department heads about having staff park in different areas.
Is there a way,
Especially
like,
for the dinners, I mean, there's not really
that's really the only thing we're
much
asking
staff
for.
around. I don't know who would be taking up the parking space.
Like 3, right?
It's 4 o'clock on the third Wednesday of every month.
The church, so the church, the bell tower was taken down. It's going to be rebuilt, not built all the way up, just, you know, built to cap it off. And then there was other structural issues within the building. So I've just approved the report that I received from the engineer. And so they're going to be starting working on the rest of that next week, some interior, some exterior, but basically tightening up the entire building to make it fully structurally sound. That will all fall within the grant dollars that we were given for that project.
Is 15th Street going to be shut down? Is our parking lot going to be shut down?
No, I don't think there'll be any reason to shut down 15th. They're going to do some roof work, so I guess if it gets to be an area where they think something could come off of there, maybe the sidewalk on the 15th Street side, but there should be no reason to close the parking lot specifically, and I don't believe there's any for the road, but I'll get with the contractor to find out.
Okay, I just have one more thing. What time is the ordinance for starting mowing and all that stuff? City employees mowing, what time does that start?
So the city employees arrive at 6, so it could be any time after that. The ordinance, I believe, is 7.
Okay, because I've been woken up several times with them mowing here, mowing the park at 6:15. Not a happy camper.
No, thank you.
So maybe you can talk to somebody about that.
Paul Clickner, 1800 9th Avenue, Waterloo. National Grid has completed the new meters on the outside of 9th Avenue from Clinton to 16th Street. Is there any idea if they're going to repair the roads? It's like a landmine out there. The manager told me when they completed the putting in the meters that they were going to come back and fix the street. Nothing's been done, and I was wondering if they're going to do that before snow falls.
Yeah, absolutely. Grid is to come back and patch the road at this moment. I do have a call scheduled with them tomorrow afternoon to see where they're at. The project manager, see where they're at with the restoration. They completed the restoration on the other blocks. The 9th Ave was the last piece of that. And more to come on 9th Ave. Hopefully some more information at the next meeting.
Hi, I'm Gail Wood, 806 19th Street. I just want to have a little quote here from the Waterloo News from Shirley, saying that we did have allocations of funds for the bulk pickup this fall. I very seldom even use it, but we need to have the correct information, and now we're not having it. So really, what is it? Do we have the allocation for the funds? That's what we're told in Waterloo News. And now you're saying no. So what is real?
So that's a Facebook post?
Yeah, Waterloo News.
I don't have any control over what anybody posts on Facebook.
Well, it's coming from our councilman.
Well, unfortunately, it's false. We did not budget for a second bulk week.
Okay.
The way of
The website
So then I
says
won't
still
even
say that
believe
there
what
were
our
2
councilman said.
bulk pickups for the city.
That's correct. Yep, and that information has been on there for the last 10 to 12 years.
Right, but people are expecting a pickup in 2 weeks that people that don't have Facebook or attend these meetings aren't going to know that there's been a change.
It was put on the site, on the Facebook site, from our councilman. That's
So last year at the budget workshop, I had recommended that we do away with bulk week for multiple reasons. At that time, it was stated that the council did not agree with that. And so it was stated at that time to move forward with the bulk week, see how it went, and go from there. We had the one bulk week, saw how it went, and I made the decision to not have another because we do have other opportunities for
Did you
bulk items to
notify
be
the
disposed of.
residents of your
So I was
decision?
asked at the last meeting and officially announced that we were not doing it, and that was after talking to the department heads and the staff.
So how do the residents of the city, I mean, there's 10,000 people in the city.
Can you just come up? It's just we have a, yeah.
All right, I won't talk.
No, you can talk. We just need to have it. Come on up. Just so we have your name.
Deanna McAvoy, 1622 7th Ave. So I guess my concern is that there are 10,000 people in the city.
Correct.
So I don't care who reads Facebook, who reads Twitter. How are this residents going to know that in 2 weeks there is no bulk pickup?
Right, so bulk pickup was never scheduled for 2 weeks, so there was no cancellation of bulk week. There was not a bulk week canceled. We've had it in
For
September
years.
before, we've had it in April in years past, we had it in May
So
this
are
year.
we wrong to expect that again without notification?
And my opinion is that you're not wrong to expect anything.
All right, so what are you going to do when all these residents put their stuff out in a couple of weeks?
Probably write tickets because we're not allowed to put them out there. It's a violation of the code, but there is opportunities to be able to do it, to be able to
Don't
dispose
you
of your
think
bulk
that at
items.
least by mail or something, that a notice should have gone to the residents saying that this is no longer an option?
If that would have informed the residents more, it certainly would have helped. Yes.
I don't think that's an answer.
Yes is an answer. Yes, you're correct. Would have helped.
Whose job is it to maintain the website?
We have a outside source that maintains the website. A lot of information on there is outdated.
we agree to the great repercussions of.
Do we pay them?
Hurricanes or outside of our city, explosive in nature.
Laura Levens, 231 Sixth Avenue. It's just based on assumption because of the past, I've been starting a junk pile like everyone else has. So I'm just requesting one more pickup. Going forward, I have no problem paying for it, and I can make better arrangements throughout the year. Thank you.
Very good.
My name is Virginia Westcott. I live at 1540 Fifth Avenue on the second floor. You probably feel beat over the head with the bulk week stuff, but I think it's really urgent that you understand how important it is to the residents. Not only that you communicate a service that we have every reason to believe was going to be provided, but also communicating any change of that. In addition, going forward, I do think some sort of revised plan with payment where pickup can be made at the homes of residents that are not necessarily seniors, which I believe is the only people that have pickup now. I am a renter and not a homeowner, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a bad citizen or a bad tenant just because I rent. Any fees or things that are imposed on homeowners are then passed on to us as tenants as well. So we have as much a stake in everything as everybody else.
Thank you.
Oh, may I just add that if you are making changes, please don't prohibit residents, tenants, from obtaining those same permits, because most of us are responsible people who would like to do that.
Peggy Germano, 1124 Seventh Avenue.
Was earlier.
Yeah. I just want to add my 2 cents. I think that we certainly should have bulk week. If we're going to do away with that, then residents should know about it for next year. But for the current year, I mean, people are saving a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in garages and everything else. I mean, what are we doing? We're trying to make the city look better. What's going to happen to, the stuff that people have? If you don't have a truck or anything to move this stuff, you're stuck with it. So it's just going to build up. And if you are a renter, when you move, where are you going with that? It's just, I think we need to do it this year. I think people, whether they've been promised it, whether it's allowed, whether it's advertised on the website incorrectly, whatever the story is, I think that in the interest of treating residents fairly, and I don't think it should just be property owners, I think it should be residents. That's just my opinion, my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Is there a possibility for it to be overturned, your decision? I mean, or are we just like grasping at straws?
Are you providing all of us with information to be able to make a decision? No.
And why are you not doing it? Is it financial?
I mean, finance is, one part of it, but there's a lot that goes along with it. As the general manager, my job is not only to provide to the services to the taxpayers, but also I have the staff to worry about as well. Each of our bulk weeks, we've had staff get injured. The staff that are out there on it, if you've ever seen the amount of stuff that's out there on the streets, it's a concern for the staff. It's tons and tons of work for them, to the point where they didn't even want overtime in the last bulk week because they were beat physically, mentally, and we had 3 injuries occur too. So that plays a lot into it. There's some issues in public safety with putting that amount of trash and debris out there. Walking up and down the streets, I actually hopped on the truck with the guys in the last one to get a better feeling for it. There's boards with nails sitting around, and they're out on the sidewalk. And kids are out walking around and playing. There's junk everywhere. There's people that need to get by in wheelchairs that can't get by because it's all sitting there. We're a climate-smart community, and this is not a climate-smart action to continue to fill the landfills with bulk items in this manner. So that plays into it. We have a significant amount of people from outside of the city that are coming in and dropping things off. It's nearly impossible to police it and to prevent it from happening. I was out myself on the Sunday before it started in May, and I found 3 people and had to call the police to come and get them. It's very difficult there. The pickers that go up and down the alleys looking in your yards, that's a safety issue as well. Going in and out of your things and getting into your garbage cans and all of that. There's a lot of reasons that I take into account, and like I said, I have to listen to the staff and the department heads as well. So all of that plays into the decision making. I will say that not getting the information out there is definitely a failure of mine by not getting the information out there to the public. And so with keeping that in mind and all of the information that I just gave you, yeah, I'm gonna take a longer look at it and see what we can come up with, and I'll talk to the council and the department heads and see what we can come up with. I'm certainly not making any promises because those reasons are really very important to the city and to the staff to make sure that we do things the right way. I've always kind of been against bulk week for those reasons, but it is expected and should have been communicated prior to that. So I have to take that into account with weighing all of the other things as well. So, and I appreciate you asking the question.
Can you just follow?
Yes.
Sally Rushford on 126 First Street. I just wanted to say that I feel it's very important that you shared those things with us, because I feel like a lot of us didn't realize all of those issues. And just also on the communication, that was the lack. And I feel like maybe the proposal that you have with the sign up for a week and put your, then the things are put out there at a better rate, not in such a dangerous fashion. But I felt like it's important to let you know that I feel it is important for all of us to know those issues that you just, thank you.
My name is Joseph Pasquino, and I live over here at the the tower over here. I'm sorry, I forget things sometimes. And my question is, I've lived here since, or in the tower since February, and I like to walk around the city. That's how I lose weight and stuff. But I'm having a problem crossing the streets where cars try to run me over. And they even have signs up here that say the person that's crossing, and they speed up. At that sign, they speed up and try to hit me. And then they have, at the four corners down here, the 2nd Avenue and 19th Street, they even have signs that go up and tell the cars not to go right on red, and they zip around. Is there anybody else complained about this, or has anybody brought it to your attention?
Sure. So a couple meetings back, we did have somebody complain about some of the areas up here. The police did extra patrols and put the signage out there to capture the speeds and to determine what was going on there. So they're going to put that data together, but we have been made aware of that, and the police department is working on that to enforce it. We do have the signs, we do have the crosswalks, we continue to keep up on it, but it then becomes enforcement, and the police are certainly working on that.
So let me ask you this. If I decided to put a cam on there, because you buy them from Walmart, and I catch these people trying to run me over in the crosswalk with their license plate, and I would bring this to the police station, is that a legal thing that can be done, or is that just wasting time?
Chief, I'll turn that one.
So you can legally record if you're in a public place?
It's public place.
So I'm saying that's the answer. You can legally record. As far as us taking enforcement action based on that, if a crime was committed, absolutely. So in your scenario, if someone's trying to run you over, that's a crime. If someone's just not yielding to a pedestrian, that's a violation.
Okay, I was just wondering because they're not yielding, and they actually speed up when they see me start to cross.
So I have no problem, I'll tell you this, I have no problem putting a plainclothes police officer attempting to cross the crosswalk, and if people violate that, we'll have an enforcement action to pull cars over. We've done it in the past, and I'll do it in the future, so.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Don't let them stand in the road.
Oh, what?
Say, don't stand in the road on camera, you will get killed.
No, I just walk over and they actually speed up, I mean.
The chief will take care of it.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Oh, hold on.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Labizio, 1859 12th Ave. And I just wanted to talk about the stream above the high school. So it was repaired and then was cleaned out regularly. And then recently, I don't even know who to call because I don't know if it's the water department or the highway department who's in charge of it. But I did contact Mr. Doss, and he sent someone up there, or had me contact someone to go up and clean out the weeds. And now all the weeds are on the grates and in the grates, and it's a mess. So that's the first thing I just wanted to ask, if someone could send someone up there and take a look. Also, I just wanted to talk about the 19th Street and 12th Avenue when the kids walk across the street. I think it's very dangerous. The cars fly by there. I know the police sit in the morning on 12th Ave, but I think it would help if a police officer was sitting right there at that corner to slow those cars down. And my third thing is, as the kids walk up the street, I'm trying to think of, like, if they're walking across the street up hillside, and there's a big, huge tree there, and it's very dangerous. Limbs, I don't know if it's a school property or if it's a city property on the left-hand side. Yeah. And the tree branches are this big sometimes if it's raining, and that tree is dying, and the tree branch, and if one of those branches falls on someone, they're going to get seriously hurt. That's all.
What was the address again?
My address?
Yeah.
1859 12th Ave. Thank you.
So we'll get somebody again up to clean that out up there. For 19th and 12th, we actually had a safety audit done by the Federal Highway Administration. They were supposed to be providing us with the information from that at Labor Day. They're obviously a little bit behind, we haven't gotten it yet, but that was one of the areas that they looked at. It's a difficult area. Certainly, anybody that has kids that walk to school know that it's a tough spot. One of the things that we're really looking at there is, obviously enforcement is one thing where, if there's a red light, you can't run the red light. But one of the issues is the light turns red and the white walk sign comes on and you start to cross from north to south on 12th Ave, and people are leaving the high school from dropping somebody off and they're taking a right turn. And that's where a lot of the incidents are happening. So we're looking at some delayed signals there to be able to provide everybody the cross before the light changes and goes on the move. So that would require some traffic engineering and things like that, but I expect that the FHWA report will talk about that as well. So that will key us to look at that even further.
Yeah, I just thought that even like where the police are sitting on 12th Ave, they just have someone sitting right there. Like there's a turn lane, I know it would probably cause problems everybody getting out after dropping their kids off, but I think it would just slow people down a little bit, because they're flying through there.
Sure. Well, yeah, a couple minutes.
Start now.
Don Whitehead, 1921 8th Avenue. First of all, I'm very happy for new businesses in Watervliet. Let me put that up front. Now I want to know who allowed Luke Oil to open on 2nd Avenue. They're in violation of the zoning code. They're a gas station that has been closed for over a year, which means now they're a new business. And the new business must meet all of the requirements of the zoning requirements for a gas station. this station does not meet the requirements. They did not appear in front of the zoning Board of Appeals to get variances for those violations of the zoning law. You're not going to apply the rules and regulations to this gas station, and any other business that opens in Waterville is going to say, well, you didn't do it to them, why are you doing it to me? And anybody else that has been in front of me for the planning board knows sometimes they have to do things they really don't want to do. It costs them extra money, but the laws are there. So can anybody tell me how they can be open? Somebody gave them a permit.
Ken, is that all that you have, or do you want to continue with your question?
Well, I
don't want you to lose your 2 minutes.
Okay, well.
I paused it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So what I'll say to you is that the zoning enforcement officer, the head of the building department, has a different opinion than what you've expressed there. Based on the fact that it never changed ownership, it has always been a gas station, and it has been there. Because I did talk to him about this, and he did inspect it and approve it based off of those items. So
Statute says if a business is closed for 1 year and does nothing during that year, it no longer holds its statute as a gas station. So now it is a
does it
new gas.
specifically say as a gas station, it no
As
longer holds it as a
whatever
gas
the
station?
business is. An example was the First Presbyterian Church. When the people wanted to buy the church, it was ruled that the church had not been used for a year for any religious purposes. And for that reason, it was no longer a church. And so no longer could be in that position because the zoning doesn't approve it. They had to come up with documentation showing they were open at least once during the year. The gas station on 2nd Avenue didn't pump gas better than a year. So technically, it was a closed gas station. Even if the owner opened it again, it still has to apply to the new regulations. All they've got to have to do is go and ask for the variances. Okay, I'm sure they'll be granted. So, it's just that we need to do it correctly. All right? I'd still like to see the signs removed. This is the third time. They're still there. Thank you.
Jeremy,
Give me that list.
No.
can I say something else?
Oh.
I do know that a new gas station is supposed to be more than 500 feet from an existing one.
Right.
And that would not be the case with Stewart's, is there?
So again, the opinion of the building department is this is not a new gas station. That's where the difference in opinions come in, and so it's a.
Well, now we realize.
Right.
But Selby's now could open up, is what you're saying?
Shelby's
No.
is 495 feet.
Yeah, but Luke Oil is less, so if Luke Oil could do it, then why?
All
Selby
you gotta do
can.
is go for a
Well,
variance.
the other issue is that Selby's also changed ownership, so that's another issue.
Also, you have to stay.
Luke Oil did not change any ownership, there's no transfer of mortgage. It's the same owner and it's the same operation.
That's written down in the code? That you can be the same owner and still be when you're.
There's certain things that are in there that say that if it changes ownership, that you have to return to do it if it's. Yeah. It doesn't say if you keep the same owner, you can continue to do what you want, but.
That's what they did. It's the same owner, they continue to do what they wanted.
So the question is whether it was closed for a year or not closed for a year is the only thing that really pertains in this. So that would have to be
Because
reviewed.
Price Chopper still owns the property.
And it's the same use and it's an approved use for that area.
But it's different. The proprietor is running the station. Sure, just.
Well, we have them relook at it. And then report back. All right. Does anyone else want to talk? We have one more item to approve. So I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session.
I'll second.
You all are excused. You all are in.
What will be discussed?
Personnel matters. You made a motion?
I mean.
Second. Call the roll, Scott.
Mayor Manning?
In favor?
Councilman Patricelli?
In favor.
Councilman McGrath?
We're adjourning to executive session, which is here, so.